Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today we are going to analyze The Hindu, dated 3rd of November 2019. Displayed on the screen is a list of articles that we are going to discuss today. Time stamping for the same has been provided in the description of the video. Let's begin. We have taken this news from page number 11 of today's newspaper, and it talks about Germany to invest euro 1 billion for green urban mobility. Now we are aware of the fact that German Chancellor Angela Merkel is on visit to India, and during the visit to Delhi she identified the problem of environment and stressed the need of green urban mobility. Now, as far as this topic is concerned, this topic will fall under multiple disciplines which include economic development, polity and governance, and environment. This topic is relevant more from the perspective of the mains examination. Now, it is important for us to understand that the Green Urban Mobility Scheme was brought by the ministry in the year 2017, and it will be the next phase of National Urban Renewal Mission. Before moving further, let's try to understand the need of such scheme. First and foremost, as already mentioned in the article, that environment is a serious concern, especially in the urban areas. And in order to solve this problem, we need to strengthen our urban transport system. In cities like Delhi and many other metropolitan cities, a significant chunk of pollution is caused by vehicles, and hence we need to strengthen the urban transport so that the menace of pollution can be controlled. Second important aspect is we need participation of private entrepreneurs, especially in strengthening the urban transport. Whenever urban transport is being strengthened, one of the problems that we have witnessed is that last mile connectivity is an important problem. People normally take public transport like metro or buses, reach to a particular point, but in order to reach to their homes, office, or other destination, they require last mile connectivity. For this purpose, the policy document states that we need to go for non-motorized mechanism to solve the problem of last mile connectivity. Next important aspect is cleaner fuels. Now recently India has implemented the BS6 norms, which will come in action from 1st of April 2020. However, there is an emergent need to use cleaner fuels, which includes electric vehicles as well, or hybrid vehicles, or other type of cleaner fuels which can actually control the problem of pollution. Another significant aspect is to address high rate of fatalities that we normally see on Indian roads. In 2015 and 16, 1,95,000 people lost their lives, and 70% of them were pedestrians, cyclists, or two wheelers. Now, this is something which is very important to address, and hence it is a very important issue which should be addressed as soon as possible. Now, when we move further in this policy, the policy is basically focusing on two types of components. First is sustainable urban mobility, and second is sustainable vehicle fuels. Now let's understand what will come under sustainable urban mobility. Now when you talk about sustainable urban mobility, the important thing that we need to focus is the infrastructure. Infrastructure is important for enabling bus system. At the same time, buses are not part of sustainable urban mobility. They will go under sustainable vehicle fuels because we are trying to use energy efficient and pollution free vehicles for the purpose. Now, the second important aspect of sustainable urban mobility is safety of pedestrians and all those who use the road. Another important aspect is to actually use integrating mode with physical and soft infrastructure, for example, cashless payment through RFID tags. So, these are the part of sustainable urban mobility. At the same time, when we talk about sustainable vehicle fuels, we are actually looking for a shift from conventional fuels to clean fuels, which includes electric or hybrid vehicles for public transport. Second important aspect is to shift to non-fossil fuel for urban transport projects. The last aspect is related to include any other project demonstrating reduction in greenhouse gas emission in future. So these are the basic components of the Green Urban Mobility Scheme, which was forwarded by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Now let's move to the next part. Now, as part of the scheme, 103 cities were selected. All those cities which have the population of more than 5 lakh, according to 2011 census. Over and above, all state capitals are also included in this list, and hence the number of cities which are shortlisted for this scheme is 103. Now, the total outlay of the project is rupees 70,000 crores, and this project is expected to be implemented in 7 years. Now, it is important to understand that these 70,000 crores, cities will contribute 10% or 7,000 crores. The sources which are identified for the cities include municipal budget, land monetization, user charge, and local cess. Central government will chip in 70% of the project cost, and this will be around rupees 49,000 crores. Out of this, rupees 14,000 crores will be in the form of grants, and 35,000 crores will be in the form of line of credit. States have to chip in 20% of the project cost, and it will be rupees 14,000 crores. For this particular purpose, states will use state grant, statutory levies, and bonds. Through this mechanism, rupees 70,000 crore would be invested for the purpose of improving the urban mobility. Now let us try to understand the expected outcome from this policy and this investment. First and foremost is the accessibility. Now 58% of the urban population will get sustainable transport accessibility. This will help in saving money, time and productivity of people. At the same time, it will also contribute in solving the problem of environmental pollution. Second important aspect is the safety. Now it is planned that around 8,000 kilometers of footpath and cycle tracks will be constructed across 103 cities, and this will also help in solving the problem of accidents, which basically cause problems for pedestrians, cyclists, and two wheelers. Next important aspect is infrastructure. Now, as far as infrastructure is concerned, more than 1,000 kilometers of BRT network will be created across 28 cities. Please keep in mind these 28 cities are primarily the capital cities of the state. The infrastructure will further be strengthened by creation of 550 depot stations across 103 cities. And for ensuring last mile connectivity, 73,000 plus public cycles will be installed across 58 cities. In this fashion, government through green urban mobility policy is trying to actually solve accessibility problem, safety and better infrastructure for urban transport. We have taken this news from page number 14, and it talks about why is the telecom sector under stress. Now, as far as this topic is concerned, this is important from the perspective of General Studies paper 3, and it will come under economic development. Telecom is one of the important sectors of the economy, and this will be important more from the perspective of the mains examination. Before jumping into the nitty-gritty of the article, let's first understand the context of the article. Recently, Supreme Court gave its decision about adjusted gross revenue. Now, the telecom companies which are operating in India have an additional burden to pay 1.4 lakh crores to the government of India. As we know already that Indian economy is under stress and telecom sector is not doing any better. So this can act as a last straw which broke the camel's back, especially for the telecom sector in India. So let's try to understand what is adjusted gross revenue which has caused so much of a problem for the telecom sector. Now, in order to understand AGR completely or adjusted gross revenue, let's first understand what makes AGR. Now, AGR has two components. First is spectrum usage charges, which is called as SUC, and second is license fees. Now, it is important here to understand that license fees is required for a company to operate as a telecom company. At the same time, spectrum usage charges are imposed for the usage of spectrum by the telecom company. Now, keeping both these things into perspective, the revenue of telecom companies were defined. The National Telecom Policy of 1999 presented the revenue sharing model, and this revenue sharing model has two components: the license fees and the spectrum usage charges. Both of them were collectively used to calculate AGR. Now, the problem arose when the interpretation of telecom companies and the government became different about AGR. The telecom companies assumed that AGR will be calculated on the basis of revenue from the core telecom services, which is like calling and data. However, the government included all revenue, including revenue from core telecom activities as well as non core activities, which include like dividend income, sale of assets, sale of hardware like handsets into the picture. Now, this actually changed the formula drastically for telecom companies. And since 2003, this matter has been court, which has been recently decided by the Supreme Court. Now, because of the decision of the Supreme Court, now the telecom sector is reeling under great stress. First and foremost, telecom sector is under heavy debt. Telecom sector has a loan of around 7 lakh crores. And now, after this decision on AGR, they are expected to pay another 1.4 lakh crores to the government of India. At the same time, two leading companies, which are Airtel and Vodafone Idea, have to pay more than half of the total value, which is in tune of around 80,000 crores. When Supreme Court decided in the favor of the government, it also mentioned that telecom companies have to pay penalty as well as interest for the delay in the deposition of the money, and hence this value has been inflated to 1.4 lakh crore. Now, this is something which has bothered the telecom sector to a big extent. Now, as far as India is concerned, the telecom sector contributes around 6% of the GDP, and around 22 lakh people are employed in this sector. Hence, any kind of stress on this sector can threaten the livelihood of a large chunk of population. Now, let's try to understand the problems which are faced by various sectors which are influenced by this. First and foremost is the telecom sector. Now, we know that the telecom sector in India is highly competitive. At the same time, the call rates in India are lowest, and this is also true for data rates. The telecom sector is capital intensive, and hence debt of around 7 lakh crores is there on the telecom sector. Not only competition and low call rates is the problem, telecom sector also suffers from the problem of huge license fees. Over a period of time, because of all these factors, many telecom companies have either gone out of business or have filed for bankruptcy. Many companies have taken this route, for example, Tata, Aircel, Telenor, and many others. So, in this fashion, we can understand that telecom sector per se is under heavy stress. Now, when we expect telecom sector to furnish another 1.4 lakh crores, then it can actually break more telecom operators in India. Next, people who can be influenced by this problem is lenders. Now we already know that the telecom sector has a debt of around 7 lakh crores, and a significant portion of this loan is taken from banks. If telecom sector is not in a position to pay 1.4 lakh crores, and if more companies go for bankruptcy, it will actually increase the NPA burden of many banks, and this in turn will worsen the position of many banks. This will also take away the economic credibility of many public sector banks. Hence, this problem has far-reaching effect on other players as well. Now let us focus on other sectors which will get influenced by this crisis. Now, as far as other sectors are concerned, we know that India is a fast-growing economy. Now, the fast-growing economy is supported by robust digital infrastructure. If telecom companies are under stress and if some of them go out of business, then the government's initiative to establish a credible infrastructure will go in waste. Moreover, India is also moving towards 5G. And for this purpose, these companies have to invest heavily. Investment in 5G will actually spur growth in many other sectors, and hence other sectors are closely related to the performance of the telecom sector in India. Hence, this is an important thing which government should pay attention to. Last but not the least, since the operating cost of telecom companies would go up, so telecom companies will try to transfer their burden on the consumers. And this can actually cause an increase in call and data rates in India. Now, it is also important to understand its impact on the government. Now, the government is expected to gain from an earning of around 1.4 lakh crores, but in the long run, it will severely affect direct taxes to the government. Government has the responsibility to manage planned growth for all sectors. Digital infrastructure is key to growth and development of the entire economy, and hence the government is expected to take some positive measures. Now, as far as way forward is concerned, the author has mentioned few way forwards. First, there can be a relaxation by increasing the term of payment. Now, as per the Supreme Court ruling, the payment has to be made as early as possible within this financial year. Now, if the government goes for the relaxation, the telecom companies will have more time to manage expenses and make payments. Second important thing which the government can do is actually they can reduce the spectrum usage charges and the license fees, which can actually help the telecom companies to come out of the situation. Now we know that telecom sector is under tremendous competition, so there are no minimum rates for call or data. Now the government should actually step in and they should fix minimum call and data rates so that these telecom companies can operate profitably. We have taken this news from page number 14 and it talks about sequencing Indian genes. Now, this topic is important from the perspective of prelims as well as for the mains examination. It will be covered under General Studies paper 3 and it will come under the subject of technology. As a subtopic, it will come under awareness in the field of IT, space, computer, robotics, nanotechnology, biotechnology, and issues relating to intellectual property rights. At the same time, this topic is also important from prelims examination. And we have seen many questions in the previous years which deal with Genome project. Considering the importance of this topic, let's try to understand from the perspective of the examination. First and foremost, it is important for us to understand the context. Now, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, which is also called as CSIR, has recently concluded the IndiGen project. Now, as far as IndiGen project is concerned, the objective of the project is to actually do whole genome sequencing for 1008 Indians from different communities. Now we need to understand that the focus is on Indians because we want to develop genome sequencing which has complete data for Indians. The information derived from this genome data would be of great value in terms of developing predictive and preventive medicine for Indians. Now we need to understand there are many diseases which are of genetic nature. World over, there are many studies which are going for genome sequencing. At the same time, one more thing is important for us to understand that genetic material is also influenced by the environmental factors. Since environmental factors of different geographical regions are different, and hence it is important for India to develop its whole genome sequence so that they can develop predictive and preventive medicine and which can actually help in cost saving, right identification of disease and right treatment to the patients. So this entire project is very important from the perspective of India. Now before jumping into the details, let's understand more about DNA, genes and chromosomes. Now let us understand what is DNA. The full form of DNA is deoxyribose nucleic acid. Now DNA is actually the hereditary material which carries complete set of instruction to develop, live and reproduce. Now as far as DNA is concerned, it is primarily present in the chromosomes. So this is suppose a cell, the inner part is nucleus and in nucleus there are chromosomes. DNA is very neatly stacked in these chromosomes. Another important aspect is mitochondria, which is also called as powerhouse of the cell, also has some part of DNA and is called as mitochondrial DNA. Now, DNA is basically made of four bases or nucleotides, which are called as adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. Now, it is important to understand that adenine and thymine go together. Similarly, guanine and cytosine also go together. In this form, the entire information of human genetics is basically coded in this DNA in the form of adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine in combinations. This is where we can see that this is a double helical structure and this is the information which is given in the form of gene. So in a nutshell, we can say that genes are the basic physical and functional units of heredity. Genes give instruction to make specific kind of proteins, and once these proteins are produced, they are reflected into activities which are related to develop, live, and reproduce. Now we need to understand that most of the genetic material of human beings is same. Actually 99% of the entire genetic material of all the humans are same. It is actually the 1% which brings most of the difference in terms of eye color, skin, hair, etc. Also important here to understand that the variation in genes also influence a person's risk of developing a disease as well as his response to a particular kind of medication. For this purpose, whole genome sequencing is attempted for Indians. So let's try to find out what is whole genome sequencing. Genome sequencing is about figuring out the order of DNA nucleotides or bases, that is, the order of A, C, T, and G that make up organisms' DNA. The human genome has over 3 billion such bases. Once we understand the order of this DNA nucleotides, its sequence tells the scientist kind of genetic information that is carried in a particular DNA segment. At the same time, it helps in identifying the problems that an individual may face. Since we have whole genome sequence, we have problems identified. At the same time, we can also forecast efficacy of medicine. This also helps in pinpointing the cause or problem gene sequence. As already mentioned, IndiGen project is looking forward for enabling genetic epidemiology and to develop public health technologies which are more of application oriented. Now, as far as the significance is concerned, we need to understand that genetic diversity is a very important factor in solving lot of problems, especially from the perspective of medicine. There are multiple global efforts which are devoted to genome sequencing. At the same time, India needs to find genetic diversity of this geographical region. As already mentioned, environmental factors also affect genetic mutation, and hence genetic diversity of India must be captured. Once this genetic diversity is captured, we can identify the problem causing gene and take preventive action in a pinpointed accuracy, and this will be very cost effective for the population of India. There are many global efforts which are trying to go for genome sequencing. The important ones are Earth Biogenome Project, second is Human Genome Project, and third is 100K Genome Project. Now, the Earth Genome Project aims at sequencing the genomes of every eukaryotic biodiversity on Earth over a period of 10 years. Its objective is to sequence 1.5 million species in 3 phases. At the same time, Human Genome Project, which is coordinated by the National Institute of Health and the US Department of Energy, is an international research effort to determine human genome and identify genes that it contains. 100K Genome Project is little different because it aims at sequencing the genomes of 1 lakh infectious microorganisms to create a database of bacterial genome sequence for the use of public health, outbreak detection, and bacterial pathogen detection. These efforts are very important for you to understand, and you should keep a note of these projects so that you can utilize them when questions are asked in the examination. We have taken this article from page number 10 and it talks about WhatsApp's disclosure to CERT-IN lost in jargon. Now, as far as this topic is concerned, this is important from the perspective of General Studies Paper 3 and it will be covered under security. As a subtopic, it will come under Basics of Cyber Security. Now, this news has gained prominence in last few days. First, it was reported that WhatsApp was hacked and was used to spy on journalists and human rights activists. For this purpose, a software, Pegasus, was used for the hacking. Now, it is mandatory under the IT Act that such acts of hacking or sacrifice of security must be reported to the Government of India. But the first reaction from the government was that it was not informed. WhatsApp has clarified that they have already informed CERT-IN and they have performed all activities under the IT Act. However, CERT-IN, which is an acronym for Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, said that information provided by WhatsApp was in technical jargon without any mention of Pegasus, and hence CERT-IN could not take any action. Now, from the perspective of examination, it is important to understand more about CERT-IN. First and foremost, it comes under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. The underlying objective of this organization is to have a secure cyberspace and safety and security of data. It is also responsible to act for any computer security incident, report on vulnerabilities, and promote effective IT security practices throughout the country. At the same time, according to the provisions of Information Technology Amendment Act of 2008, this organization is responsible for overseeing of administration of IT Act of 2008. So this is an important organization and you should keep note of the ministry, its mandate and its objective. In light of this article, we need to know more about cyber security measures taken by India. The important measures are National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center, that is NCIIPC, Cyber Surakshit Bharat Abhiyan, National Crisis Management Plan, National Cyber Coordination Center, Cyber Swachhata Kendra, Information Security Education and Awareness Project. All these projects are important from the perspective of cyber security in India. A brief about them is given in the DNS notes as well. Kindly keep them handy. Now there is a fleeting mention of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and for this purpose we need to know more about this. At the same time, this news was covered in detail on 5th of March 2019. Please refer to this video to know more about Shanghai Cooperation. At the same time, paper 1 mentions about Code of Ethics. This again was covered on 27th of September 2019 by Mangal sir. Please refer to these videos to know more about these articles. Now, based on today's discussion, let's take up practice question for the day. Now, the first question talks about consider the following statement related to whole genome sequencing. Now, statement 1 says it involves a sequencing of only exome which provide instruction for making proteins in the body for the healthy functioning. Second is genome sequencing finds application only in the field of curative medicine and not in the preventive medicine. Now let me explain that statement 2 is definitely incorrect, as we've already known not only curative but also preventive medicine is part of it. Now for all those who do not know about exome, only 1% of genes are responsible for making proteins and are referred as exome, and this is mentioned in the DNS notes as well. Further, it has been mentioned that, however, even the genes in the non-exome portion also affect the functioning of body. By this logic, statement 1 is also incorrect, and hence the correct answer is option D. Let's take up question number 2. With reference to CERT-IN, consider the following statements. Statement 1, it functions under the Union Ministry of Home Affairs with an objective of securing Indian cyberspace. This is incorrect. Second statement is it has been made responsible for overseeing the administration of Information Technology Amendment Act. This is definitely correct. Hence the correct answer for this is option B. Let's take up question number 3. Consider the following statement about IndiGen project. This project aims at carrying out whole genome sequencing for the entire population of country for the free of cost. As already mentioned, it has selected 1008 people and hence statement 1 is incorrect. It is being implemented by Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. This is definitely correct and hence statement 2 is correct. By this logic, the correct answer is option B. With this, we have come to the end of today's session. Let's move to the question of the day.